It's Thanksgiving week.
It is the holiday season. So it's time for sweaters to do this. Ta-da! Anyway, welcome back to this week's podcast, which this week will be brought to you by Mystery Mail and Surprise Daddy Issues.
This week's podcast is also brought to you by Mandatory Labor and Accents.
I am your host, Madison.
I am your other host, Jesse James. That's a nice ensemble you're wearing.
Thank you. Thank you. That brings me to my first topic, mystery mail. Just a few minutes ago, I checked the mail and I had a package from an address I did not recognize. But it was addressed to Mads, so I knew it had to come from someone who actually did know me. So I opened it, and this whole business was in there, and I thought I would take everyone on kind of a tour of the sweater because there's just a lot. So it's a tree.
It's a highly populated sweater.
It's a very populated tree. As like lights, obviously. There are some things that are glued to this that I'm not totally sure what they are.
That's not bad.
Like I think this is supposed to be a gumdrop, but it's plastic and covered in glitter, so that's cool. The sides have snowflakes, like symmetrical. I guess I'm missing one here, but semi-symmetrical snowflakes. But I think the elbows are my favorite. There's just some nice, like, poofy arm business. It's very good.
It's well balanced. That's really what's going on with that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then I have a figurine.
Okay, it has a scarf. I thought that was another weird tiny leg for a second. Okay, yeah, and some candy canes.
Yep, some candy canes. It's very balanced, but yeah, I was just telling you before we started recording that it is dense and it's hot.
What's the comfort level of something like that?
I feel like I could comfortably. There's actually, for as far as ugly sweaters go, there's nothing on it that's itching me. So I'm pretty comfy, actually. And if I were cold, I could just turn the lights on and I'd be instantly all warmed up. So it's pretty great.
Versatile. Also, it's entirely plausible that is just a regular gumdrop that's old, because they do kind of just turn into plastic.
I think it's hollow though.
Oh,
it sounds hollow. So maybe, I don't know, but gumdrop, and there's lots of like ornaments.
It's like when teddy bears have a different texture for like the round part of their stomach. It's like they've somehow done that to a human being through that sweater.
Kind of. I feel like if I were standing up, the effect would be a little bit better, but I'll post a full picture when we put up the episode.
If you have them, I feel like the only thing missing from that sweater is shoulder pads. If you can insert some shoulder pads, I think you'll really have a full piece there.
I think you're right. I do have some laying around somewhere, so that's what it needs. It's just a little like.
When I see it, I think that's a good look, but it needs to be bigger somehow.
Just I could just get more of these and just stuff them up in there. Get some like puffy sleeve action going.
Nothing warmer than packing a sweater full of tinsel.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
very warm.
Yeah. That reminds me, I did also end up with a terrible piece of clothing, which I'm very excited about. This is not my first piece of velvet clothing, but it is my first adult piece of velvet clothing, and it is more blankety than you would expect. Also, this is not going to live through very many wash cycles. I should probably just put this in the freezer or something. Anyway, snack-wise, though, I do have... well, I have stolen snacks. They're all gummies that my roommate got when they were at the store a few days back. So, not an exciting snack corner, but I do have some drinks. It sounded like you were getting some snack cornering. Do you have anything interesting over there?
Nothing too interesting. I don't actually have any food snacks. I have a couple of drinks going on. Well, I don't currently have any food snacks, but I do have a food snack I had earlier that I could share about that was really good, which was a little, it looked like a little pudding cup, but it was a little bit smaller, and it was called like a coconut dessert pot or something like that. But it was like, I think it was kind of like a fudge filling mixture that you just eat with a spoon. Made with coconut milk, and it was really, really good.
That sounds pretty excellent.
Mm-hmm. It was very good.
If you have the name of that, you should send it to me later, because I might have to seek those out.
Yeah, it's over on my desk, so I'll grab it after this. But it's incredibly rich. Like, I could have eaten... It's like this big, and I could have eaten half of it.
Okay, so it's like a dessert from what is it called? Man, jokes don't work if you can't remember the pieces of them.
Yeah, it is like that. It's exactly like that.
Well, I'm going to deflect into... I also have these Gamesa, which I'm about 2/3 of the way through. But I wanted something that wasn't just sugar over here. But I do have... So I have my standard drink stuff. I have some coffee. And I have some water. But I thought I'd go a little Spanish. So got to start with a little cherry Coke. Also compliments of Nicholas, unofficial podcast member / roommate. And then to finish this off, because Kalimosto is what I'm doing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the stuff.
That is a great drink, and I always forget about it. And now I'm thinking I'm going to have to do that in the near future.
Yep. I've not had it in over a year because the only times I used to have it was when I would go out to Capitol Hill and then I would get a bunch of this shit while I was sitting around drawing or something.
Yeah.
It's so fucking good. People don't appreciate the Coke and red wine like they should.
They really don't. They really do not.
But, yeah. Okay, well now I feel like podcasting.
Now we're ready. I as far as drinks go, I only have a simple iced coffee, decaf, of course, and a coconut liqueur. So
gotta get a nice lequac in there.
Yeah, I got my lequac, and I'm ready to go. I was trying to find vodka to put in this, but my parents have relocated it.
That's terrible.
A tragedy, really, all around.
I feel like, I don't know. It's the holidays. You gotta leave the vodka where it's easily accessible.
You gotta leave it out. I mean, and to add insult to injury, I went down to my brother's room, and there were no, like, easily seeable bottles of anything that I could use. So I couldn't even steal anything from him. He's either drank it all or hidden it very well, and I did not feel like going through his stuff. So congrats, Carter. You hid your stash better than I thought you would.
See, that's the thing. When I do my next house transition this summer, if I end up doing the adult child at home thing, at least I know that my dad's alcohol is just going to be like on a table next to a chair. We're not going to be very visible, and I'm probably going to have to try not to have drinks given to me at night. So, I just don't understand your parents, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but
not Catholic enough, I guess.
Not enough.
Well, our collection of bad movies this week is, for me, extensive, but we're gonna hold off on the Princess Switch saga for next week, which is probably fine because Shrek the Musical was something that we watched, and that was rough. It's also on Netflix, and I'm gonna have to demand that everybody who listens to this, all tens of you, need to watch Shrek the Musical.
Please.
Because our small group of like 8 or 9 people can't be the only people suffering from this whole thing. Though I will say, when I forced people to watch Shrek the Musical the other night, I was told by one of the people watching that they had already seen 2 it sounds like live versions of Shrek the Musical, maybe, but that kids did. I don't know what the fuck that means, but that sounds terrifying as well.
Yeah, I don't think I like that.
Also, you can't do a lot of the parts for Shrek the Musical with kids unless you're fine with some weird subject matter in there.
Yeah, I don't think it's as funny if it's kids.
I also, it's really going to ruin that scene with, none of these scenes would be ruined, but the Princess Fiona, right?
Yeah.
When they introduce her singing in her tower, and then 3 of her are singing.
Oh, what did they even do?
Yeah, you would have to just have 3 kids singing like they're 3 different ages, I guess. I don't know.
One of them is an actual baby. I don't know. There's a lot going on in this Shrek musical.
I guess my first question would be, since we watched it separately, what is the amount of time that it felt like? Because it was 2 hours for the musical.
Yeah.
And my heart told me it was at least 5 hours when it was
done. Yeah, I did watch it in 2 parts.
Uh-huh.
For that reason. So yeah, I would say it did feel like a solid 5 hours of stuff that I was watching, which is even more unfortunate because as you're watching the movie, you realize I don't think I've seen Shrek that many times, but I still remember a lot of scenes that were like abridged. So I just having the knowledge that it could have been much longer is upsetting.
Same. I think I last saw Shrek. I saw a version of it that was sped up to be only 5 minutes long. And that's the only version of Shrek I've seen in the last most of a decade. Because why would you go see it again? Though I think I've seen all the Shreks. There may be some fun I live in an apartment complex noises today. Also, I think everybody is off work and getting ready for Thanksgiving this week. But I'm even through the headphones, I'm getting some pretty gnarly cleaning nearby noises.
I've just heard a single thump, and that's the only thing I've heard so far. So
okay,
we're mostly good.
But Shrek the Musical really made me realize that there's no reason why Shrek should ever have been popular. One of the people watching it with me, or I guess a few of the people watching it with me, liked the donkey character, and I don't know that I could honestly say that I liked any character, but I could see how the makeup on the donkey character was the funniest.
Yeah, I did appreciate that at all. I had most of my notes, no, not most of them. Some of my notes pertain to the costuming and the makeup, which, as you can imagine, for people listening, is very extensive in a Shrek musical, but not as good as you would hope. So, yeah, to your point about it, it never should have been popular. Watching it back again kind of reminds me of I've watched Jenny Nicholson's video on YouTube about Hercules and how it was kind of a like mishmash of pop culture references, because they were trying to just mash every commercially successful concept into one movie, to like make money, and it didn't really do that well. And I feel like that's similar to what Shrek is, because it's like fairy tale, but also we're kind of updating it with modern day references and music, I guess. But I don't know, like, I don't know how I feel.
The closing song really drove home, like, I hadn't reached the height of demonification until the song at the close was the same song at the end of the Shrek movie, but a cover, and that sucked. That was one of those things that, like, I kind of knew it was going to happen, but I didn't think it was going to happen quite so horribly.
Right, because that's like the Shrek song, that and Hallelujah. Those are like the Shrek songs. Did they even do Hallelujah?
No, but thank Christ, because I can't listen to that song. So many people have covered that song at this point, and I didn't like it at the beginning, and I still don't like it.
Makes sense. Fair enough. But those were like the two songs I was looking for in a Shrek musical, and they didn't do Hallelujah. I don't know why. They didn't. And they did whatever the other one is called. But yeah, it was bad, which is pretty bad because that's like the Shrek song. So that's the one you would hope to get right. But between the movie and the musical, which do you think is better?
So this is just the first Shrek movie and the musical.
Right.
That's tough, because I think that some of the jokes in Shrek, kind of like some of the jokes in the Emperor's New Groove, work okay as a cartoon. And I think that you have to rely a little bit on like the exaggerated, like, cartoon weirdness. Like, a lot of what happens in Emperor's New Groove, because that and Shrek are pretty similar, honestly, doesn't work without the physical comedy, like, accenting what they're doing. And I feel like Shrek has a lot of that too. Like, the scenes with the dragon and stuff are generally not, like, the dialogue is there and it's okay, but it's the funniest things in the musical as well. They're visual gags that play over.
Right.
I think maybe the funniest thing in the musical is the fact that one of the like misfit toy people is also the ventriloquist for the the
gingerbread
the
boy.
gingerbread man. So like having that character very noticeably going up and like moving the puppet around and talking was funny to me. But like they almost needed more of that, and I think they tried to do more of that, but so apparently the Shrek musical cost 25 million to make. Like that was apparently how much it cost to do that, and the cartoon cost 50 million. I believe those people were looking it up as we were watching it.
Interesting.
And the musical didn't make its money back, but the movie did like times over.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. Like, also the musical's not playing for children. Like the musical is clearly trying to play to a Broadway audience, which is also a horrible mistake if you're not going to diverge a little further. Having Lord Farquaad just be a guy on his knees for the whole thing, while amusing for a moment. Once you were to like scene 3 with him, where he was just standing up sometimes, that kind of wore off for me. Like the first scene, I was like, okay, I get it, and the second scene, it was like they're kind of relying a lot on this, and then by the time it was like the second half of that thing, it was like they gotta think of something better to add to it, or there's nothing happening.
Yeah, I think from like the second half, they just tried to put him in more ridiculous positions, like the bathtub.
Yeah,
I remember that was kind of funny, but yeah, at first I did really like the guy on his knees. I thought that was really funny, but it does kind of wear over time. And you're right. There are a couple of like numbers or scenes, I guess, where you can definitely tell that they're trying to play to like that Broadway kind of audience. This isn't Broadway, right? It didn't run on Broadway, or is it?
Oh yeah, it did.
Oh God, okay.
Yeah, this is the intro to it, I believe, is a Broadway, like they do like the New York and they go in through the theater,
really?
and then that's
Okay.
how the whole thing starts. And I think that's their like Broadway opening is what they're showing.
Okay. I missed that. So that makes things a little worse.
Yeah.
But there were a couple scenes where I was like, okay, this is like very visually interesting. I think one of my favorite dance numbers was at right after they rescue Fiona, and she's like doing her "I'm a morning person" thing, and she she meets the Pied Piper and has like all the rats dance, but the rats are just guys' shoes behind a curtain.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, I liked that. I didn't really understand I like the segue from that to like a full-on kind of cabaret thing was a little weird to me, but I don't know. I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself here, but
I don't think there's a way to get ahead of yourself because it's such a like weird mishmash of garbage. Like the Fiona just uncostumed to like in the like princess outfit doing things was probably the most interesting part of the whole play, which is weird because the play is about a big green monster man, I guess finding a girlfriend. Like it was much more clear than even the cartoon that the other characters didn't matter really in the like play version. And the jokes that the Misfit Toy group make are just terrible.
All of those scenes are very unbearable.
Those scenes felt like they took something like Urinetown and tried to make it less interesting. And that's tough to like add costumes to something that's just a bunch of like people with like problems and still make it not interesting, even though like they had a good chance to like do a visual thing with Pinocchio and having like a thing to make the nose grow, and they made it the least interesting version of that they could possibly do. Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, I wrote down from right at the beginning when Pinocchio like comes on and instantly starts solo. I wrote down that the solo really reminds me of how much I hated the character in the movie as well. But at least the character in the movie like has some. I'm trying to remember. It's been too long. I think the character in the movie has some sort of like resolution or something. But anyway, like what you're saying, each of them have their own like individual problems. But some of them, like, I don't know, for some reason they tell it in a way. I feel like they either like changed it from what it was in the movie, or they told it in a way that like you just cannot possibly care about any of their problems. It
like,
just sounds ridiculous.
When they had the Misfit, especially the Misfit stuff going, where it's like a bunch of short stories that are even harder to care about than the rest of the play.
Right.
It made me feel like this is like a major indictment on the quality of all that stuff. It felt like if they had fucking Pickle Rick show up in those scenes, it would have been better, which is like crazy how like uninteresting for a play that has to be. Like they could have one of the most memorable scenes in the entire play for me is when they're doing their adventure, like they're starting the adventure with Donkey and Shrek, and you see stuff go by in the back, and one of them is one of the props from the Lion King musical. That's still one of the things when I think about this play that is the most interesting, because they had something that looked like an artist made it for a play. And in this, the best art was a man on his knees and a dragon puppet that they didn't feel like making too intricate, so they just had people in like scale outfits dancing around to do like what the dragon's doing, which it felt very like old German play to me, which only works if you have an actual interesting story with like scene transitions.
Which there definitely is a way to have that kind of old German style of play, and I think pull it off with this, because that's even kind of the style that's in like the Duloc thing. Like that's their whole thing, is like that weird layered, I don't know if it's Bavarian or what, that's just kind of what it reminds me of. That style totally could have just been done throughout the play, but instead they just did some really odd things. But I agree with you that the highlights, definitely the dragon. As far as like visual effects go, the dragon was not bad. The puppet. Oh, and then I wrote down the mirror game show scene. I liked, actually.
Yeah, that wasn't bad.
I felt like they could have done a little bit better, like a little bit more with that, because I really liked the mirror character.
Yeah, the mirror character worked, and the mirror transition to the Fiona Castle from the game show was probably the best thing they did visually. But like they really liked that that concentric circle stage with like individual rotations, and like that was interesting, but it wasn't enough to actually be good. Like it also, there's always different setups, I feel like, for like how they get the band in there for like plays and stuff, but I was constantly worried about how they had it set up in this one, because they had a one person wide bridge through the middle of it on top of the orchestra for seemingly no reason. So like you could see the back. I didn't even catch that. Yeah, if you look at the floor in especially parts of the like second act stuff, you can see the back of the conductor's head in the floor, but there's only about this wide a space that is in like in front of your view to him. And then there's like lattice work over the band to make it look more like an extension of the stage. But because of that, it's just a guy's head and then a space where they have like Donkey and Shrek doing stuff on. And it felt like if either of them fucked up ever, they would just crush the people that are playing for this. And they were doing pratfalls and stuff on it. Like Donkey does like a feint, I think, just onto that thing, and it's as wide as I am, and it really was like it's impressive in a way, but it's needlessly impressive. They didn't have to put the band in the stage. They could have put them like usual in front of the stage, and it would have worked just fine. But I don't know. I'm sure they had a reason, but I don't know that it was a good enough reason based on like especially having the guy's head just in the middle of the stage kind of popping up was distracting enough to where I don't think maybe if he wasn't just a white bald man, if he had like some sort of like thing to make his head look like a little hill, it would have been like funny at least, but it was just sort of distracting.
Yeah, I noticed his head at the very beginning, but I did not notice that setup at all throughout it, which goes to your point that like they might as well not have done it because I didn't even notice it. But it makes me wonder that I wonder if the band was somehow visible during the production, like if you were there and maybe they were in costume or something. That's the only thing I can think of that would have not redeemed it, but given it some purpose. But
that would have been more interesting for sure.
Yeah,
I feel like so many things could have made it more interesting. Like it really had the same feel when I was watching it as when I was watching Cats. Of like, these musical numbers are not good, but it's weird enough that I will watch it.
Yeah.
But like, unlike good musicals, I don't want to go back even for the bad numbers and see what kind of stuff they were doing. Because the only parts that I liked were mostly agnostic of the actual music anyway.
Yeah.
And especially, so you didn't watch the other thing we watched, which was the Elf Pet stuff, right?
Mm-mm.
Man. So if you could do me a favor, if you have phone access, would you just look up Elf Pets? I'm curious what the price is on these. Because if nothing else,
Elf
Netflix.
Pets?
Yeah, like ELF. If nothing else, Netflix is really upping their like brand engagement for the holidays this year, and Elf Pets was exactly what I hoped it would be when I put it on the docket for watching. It is a half-hour commercial for some garbage for kids.
Is this just supposed to be like 3 stuffed animals? Oh, they made a movie out of these 3 stuffed animals?
They made 2. But they're only a half hour each. But it's so we watched one of 2, which was the one about the foxes. So there's a white fox one that looks like it came with a book. Is that an option?
Mm-hmm. It is $25.
So that's $25. So here's the storyline of the Elf Pets that we watched. There is a kid whose mom is in the military, and their mom's going to be late for Christmas, and they're very sad. That's the storyline. The Elf Pets are they like live in Santa's workshop, but it doesn't seem like they necessarily make toys. Maybe they do, but they do all look like they have. Look at the faces; they all kind of have like sort of childish faces.
Yeah.
Do they have any of the Elf Pets that have mustaches? Because that was the thing that was most disturbing in the animation.
No.
Okay,
no mustaches.
So the Elf Pets in the animation had both like a big Wilford Brimley R.I.P. mustache and a little twirly like black mustache to like designate characters. Like they all had like pieces of flair, but there were literally hundreds of them on screen. And they all don't have like any kind of clothing on because the elf pet look is just a red fabric body. So they all have like flair from the neck up, and then everything else is the same red, like long johns look. And they're about this tall, about like head height. And they just sort of stand around while Santa Claus talks about Christmas. The storyline in this is that sad kid is living with his grandma at the moment in what appears to be Alaska. I don't remember. I didn't care. And then Santa, who seems to live next door, but I think he was supposed to be in the North Pole, and they have white foxes come and run around and slap their tails on the ground, and the Aurora Borealis pops out. And then the Aurora Borealis is the teleporter that Santa uses to go to houses.
Oh.
And then the Aurora Borealis doesn't Borealis enough. And the solution is Santa's going to give all the kids fox toys, I guess, and the fox toys being owned by kids makes Santa able to complete Christmas again. And also, some kid has his mom come home in time because, I don't know, it's completely indecipherable. You could watch it on mute, and it's the exact same movie. It's terrible, but also it's so obvious that it's just toys that they're selling through the thing. It's practically saying, like, and you can get it at the store too. Like, it's, and not only that, but the elf pets are the correct size for the toys, and the foxes are the correct size for the toys when they have them show up. And the accessories for the foxes are just, like, on them at all times. Like, they may as well have tags that say, like, the company and stuff on them. It's really gross. And then in the animation, they also did a bunch of stuff where it's like, well, we want ribbons in this area, so let's just copy and paste these 3D ribbons. And it turned into a game for me of looking at each scene and being like, what things did they just copy and paste? Because you could see, like, there was a scene that had, like, doilies on a bunch of tables, and all the doilies had the exact same fabric ripples. So you could see, like, as the lighting passed over them, they were just, like, PlayStation 1, like, repeats of the same image over and over. There's a lot of that shit. And obviously all the elf pets, since they have red androgynous long john bodies, were the exact same model. Like, I think since they were going to make a movie anyway, oh, sorry, important, I just got an email from Donald J. Trump that says I have great news! Anyway, but yeah, it's a nightmare, and I plan on watching the second one soon. Anyway, don't buy elf pets. They seem terrible.
They also look just cheap
and
for being $25. So
if I got a $25, it's reindeers, foxes, and little elf people, I would be annoyed.
Yeah.
Which is surprising because I got a Sky Dancer and I was psyched about it.
What is the Sky Dancer?
It's stupid as hell. You have a little plastic thing, and a little thing sits on top of it that looks like, I think the one I got was like a guy Sky Dancer, so it was like a guy in armor with like dragon wings or something.
Okay. But is it the thing you pull?
You pull the string and their arms go, and their arms are just propellers, and then they like zip up and hit the ceiling or whatever. Yep. It was stupid, but it was also like exactly the right amount of stupid for like a weird shut-in kid to enjoy. Like, nice. Also, the cat hated it, so I could do that and it would look mildly annoyed and like go somewhere else, which was always my favorite game to play. That's
pretty good. I mean, it's better. Yeah, it's much better than these because it actually does something.
Yeah. Well, you could throw these in the garbage. That's a fun game.
I love that game.
Yeah. The nice thing about them having non-articulated fabric bodies is you can just really whip them into the trash can nice and quick.
Yeah, I'm only seeing. It looks like there's a deer, a bulldog, and an Arctic fox.
Oh, the bulldog hasn't shown up, but the deer is the other
Oh,
movie, so maybe they're holding on to the third movie for later.
yeah, I think, yeah. Oh, wait. Oh, that's a different universe. Never mind. I thought I saw a cow, but it's not.
Is it the same toy company?
I cannot tell.
Ah. I mean, it kind of makes sense. I did see a Calico Pets or whatever thing show up. There's a cartoon,
Yeah,
and
I don't think it's related.
okay,
The style is different, but
I forget. Were you already familiar with Calico Pets or whatever they're called?
it sounds familiar.
You should look that up real quick. I think we talked about this like years ago, and you had heard of them or seen them. Uh,
Oh, pets. Are these the ones that look like real? Oh no, this is different.
yeah, they're like little anthropomorphic
Like
house
this.
things. Yes. So when I briefly worked at a toy store, I sold a ton of those, and their pricing is outrageous.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
seeing that.
and there's a lot of rich white people in West Seattle who just buy those like weekly for their kids. It's nuts. And
These
I
are
get,
very expensive.
I think that was one of the things where the kid who was getting it was standing in front of me. The mom was buying it, and they were like, "I want this gift wrapped." So I wrapped it, and just like not a gloating thing, just for context, one of the like, I was like one of the 2 out of like 8 people who work there. Where when we needed to wrap something, I was like we'll get Jesse to do it. He'll make it fun for him kind of person.
Hmm.
And the lady made me rewrap it twice and told me that her 5-year-old could wrap it better than me. So I guess she was having a real bad day. But also, her
Wow.
5-year-old was standing in front of me receiving this wrapped gift from me. So it was almost completely useless. It was almost like they just did it so that they could berate the service worker that they were getting it from.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how that job felt overall. Really loving life at the toy store. I would still work there. It was all right.
That's so mean. I don't understand getting a getting a gift wrap for a child that sees it already.
Uh-huh.
I imagine for the 5-year-old that's just frustrating. It's just one
Yeah.
more thing between you and the toy.
Give me the thing. And
Yeah.
then your mom just standing there like, do it again.
It's not good enough. Um oh, okay. So I did want to ask you, going back to the Shrek musical.
Oh yeah,
What?
never done with the Shrek musical.
Oh no, no, I'll never be done with this. What did you think about their interpretation of the Fiona character?
Um, a lot of farting. That was fine. I
That
honestly would have
wasn't in the movie, I don't think.
I don't think so. I would have taken more of the especially in the context of like the show they were doing. They could have done more of the like, as weird as it is to say out loud, that women are people too portions. I think that stuff landed decently for a musical. Like having somebody who's supposed to be like the sex object in any other, like the sex reward in stories like that is like turned into an actual person. I think that makes a fine musical for adults, but I mean, I think it'd make a fine musical for children with more nuance, but like Shrek is sort of that with nuance, the original. I think they could have gone further. They should have just taken out any idea that it was like kid based at all, because they still hung on to bits of the movie, and I have to believe the audience that went to that did not give a shit about Shrek the movie, except that they saw that movie with their kids. Like they stuck kind of close to the storyline considering nobody has seen that book. I feel like the book is like the closest thing that they could have taken it from, and it's like it's too small of a thing. Like DreamWorks bought it up so quickly, and then the author died, and it's like it's my understanding is Shrek is like a weird sort of autobiography, but it's a children's book, and having it be that would have been an interesting musical. But they don't spend enough time even talking about the Shrek character. Like they could have actually made a real character out of a lot of these and made an interesting musical, but instead it's like, you know, like the movie you already saw, which sucks, especially for the audience.
Yeah, I could tell at the beginning they were trying to do a lot of like explaining and exposition around the Shrek character, like with the opening number with his parents being like, no one will like you, just stay in your lane kind of thing. I got that, but I did not understand the very odd whole entire scene that they devoted to Lord Farquaad's daddy issues. Which I actually didn't know it was a book, so maybe it's in the book. I don't know, but
I don't remember that, but it could have been.
It definitely wasn't in the movie. Like in the movie, he's just a lord or a king, or he wants to be king, whatever.
Yeah.
He's just royalty. There's nothing more you need to get out of that character. So I don't understand why they tried to set it up that way, because the song wasn't very funny. And then, like, they circle back at the beginning and, like, someone invites his dad to, like, come chastise him or something. But that's not funny. So
I think that's just the play. I think that was their attempt to make it more adult, but it didn't land at all.
Because the only joke surrounding that was that Farquaad was like, I was abandoned as a child, and the dad is like, you were 29 and living in my basement, which I could get that as like an adult joke. But it's just so short-lived, and I don't know.
It's also real, the jokes for a lot of that stuff had some real boomer energy, and that was maybe the most adult thing about it.
That's there was definitely a lot of boomer energy there, but I just didn't understand. I didn't understand their decision to do that at all. When I don't know, like who could they have spent more time on? Did they even do like a romantic thing between Donkey and the dragon at all?
They like kind
hinted
of
at
they
it,
kind of did, but not really. Also, like back to your original question, like I think Fiona could have been better by using that a little more too, because she goes from being in a tower and wanting rescuing to just sort of being in love with Shrek, and there isn't a transition really. It's just her singing about like being sort of like a regular garbage person, which I like, but there wasn't a transition from why am I focusing on this one aspect of my life instead of doing other stuff now that I'm free, and then like the romance story. There could have been an actual like character growth moment there too, but they just decided not to.
Yeah, it seemed like they set it up pretty well with that like 3-person number that the kids definitely couldn't pull off. But it kind of fell flat towards the end. That there's not a whole lot of explanation between I'm free and like now I'm in love with Shrek. Also, very disappointed. I'm sure this is fully just a movie thing. Yeah. But in the movie, she like knew karate and could like kick ass. That was like one of her things was that she was in her mind really dedicated to this idea of being the damsel in distress, but in reality she was often like saving herself and
Right.
was very capable of it, but that whole element is just like non-existent in the musical. I don't think they had to do karate necessarily if they didn't want to go that far, but they could have just leaned into the ogreness, I guess.
Yeah, they could have done a little more with the like, I don't know, the ogre being sort of the adult, really, like, or the unique personality. They kind of skipped that part too. I also think thematically, like, having the ogre be the one who does all the like gross stuff, that would have been more in line with having to come to terms with who you are instead of it just being like,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to wear the ogre costume for the parts where I have to do songs and stuff, so let's just only do it at the end or like in little interstitials. Like, it felt, I don't know. It did reinvigorate my interest in watching Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, because now that's something where they put their body to the text. Like, that's what they had 3 Spider-Men injured and unable to continue in that, which
I have not heard of this. What is this?
uh,
Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark.
I believe I have access to the production. So what you need to know is that Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark is something you'll be watching in the near future.
Okay. Is it a musical?
Uh-huh.
Oh
Hey,
God.
did you ever
Why?
see Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin and think, yeah, but what if that was a musical character?
Why? Oh my God. Why would the? All right.
Mhm.
I don't understand that thought process at all, but I'm very excited to see it.
But they also wanted it to be good and authentic, so they broke a lot of Spider-Man's wrist making that.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
That makes it all worth it.
I think they broke one of their ribs. They like had some real injuries.
God,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Actually, I'm interested in watching that just to see the special effects and visual stuff that they do.
Yeah, it's one of the like biggest Broadway failures ever, but I'm
That
so
makes sense.
down. I've only
Mhm.
seen like tiny clips of stuff that was in it, and it's just like the craziest, dumbest shit. Uh, but I want to see Spider-Man sing. I've been playing um, Miles Morales. It's the like newest Spider-Man game. It's also a weird transitional game that came out with the new systems. So I'm playing on the old systems, and it's like a cheap game because I think they didn't bug test it as much. Uh, which I would take non-tested games for cheaper every time they put them up, because
Oh
I,
yeah.
as a game tester in the past, I'm okay with that. I'll play some weird garbage. I'm usually just there for the art anyway, so uh, they in that they have a lot of like very acrobatic shit that's happening, and I can't play that game post Turn Off the Dark without thinking about how horribly injured somebody would be trying to do any of that shit. Uh, so
That
yeah,
makes it better.
I'll try and track down a copy of that we can both watch, because I do need to do that, and I think it might have a holiday theme towards the end, so that
Ooh,
might be perfect.
that is perfect. I love um watching musicals and talking about them and
Hmm.
uh going through them. Actually, one of my favorite podcasts right now is called Musical Splaining.
I haven't seen that or heard that rather, but that
It's
sounds good.
it's very good. It's I don't know. I'm sure you've seen some of her videos too. Lindsay Ellis on
Yeah.
YouTube. Yeah, it's her musical or her podcast. And she does it with her friend who I cannot remember his name, but he hates musicals, and she
Okay.
makes him watch all of them, and then they talk about them, and it's a really good podcast, and everyone should go listen to it after they're done listening to ours.
Obviously. I will absolutely look into that. Do you know if they have a Urinetown episode or a Starlight Express episode? Because those are two that need as much attention as possible.
I feel like they might have done Starlight Express. They don't have that many episodes up yet, so they've done Cats, which was
you have to.
Yeah. They did Beetlejuice, Hadestown, Frozen, Rent, The King and I, American Idiot, Love Never Dies.
Oh, boy. Some real bangers.
They have not done the ones that you mentioned. But
gotta keep those in the chamber. You can't just jump right into the good stuff.
Right.
I would like also to listen to them do a what I think it's is it Technicolor Dreamcoat or is it no, it's the other one. It's Jesus Christ Superstar that has a bunch of stuff in it that's just like, oh, that's anti-Semitic as hell. Great job there.
I would, yeah. I have actually never seen that one, so I'd be very interested to hear them talk about that and the Technicolor Dreamcoat because I did that play a long time ago.
Who were you?
I was a servant. I was not a character. Oh wait, no. Oh, I'm thinking of something else.
Did you get to hold the dream coat, like part of it for
a second? I never got to touch the dream coat. It was very
That's garbage.
Yeah, it was actually a very unique experience. It was something that our like local theater whatever puts on. It's called Play in a Day. And so you literally like you register, you get your lines, they cast everyone in like an evening. You learn your lines overnight, and then you come, and then you do the play the next day.
So
it's very bad.
Yeah, so the plays aren't good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
It's really bad, but it was fun.
Oh, I learned something interesting looking into AQI because our air quality's been so bad for a while. Tied for what it was like 14th out of I think it was 14th best. I don't think it was 14th worst, but Seattle's getting progressively worse air quality, like significantly since the Trump administration, which is cool. Good to know that companies are taking advantage of that shit even here.
Yeah.
But the places that Seattle ties with now in terms of ranking are Spokane and Coeur d'Alene. So at least we're breathing the same air quality.
That's interesting to me. I'm trying to think of what the main contributing sources of like bad air quality would be around here other than like fires because we don't really have a lot of there's not like industry here.
I think don't you guys have a fair amount of trucking though? Like you guys have a lot of vehicle stuff.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, that's probably the majority of it. Is just like logging and cars.
You guys also live on like the edge of a forest that borders horrible plains, so I feel like that probably doesn't help having it come into Spokane and then over.
Maybe not. Yeah. But yeah, good to know. We're breathing the same air. I went out for a run the other day, and it was hard.
Yeah. Yep. I think I've gained like 10 pounds, and I'm very upset about it because of, and it's not cool pounds like I like, because I can't do like a fuck ton of uphill stuff like I usually do with it being like moderate to bad air a lot of nights because I like to do stuff in the middle of the night, but the downside to that is if the air quality's bad and say I pass out or get stuck somewhere or whatever, it's the middle of the night in Kirkland, so I guess I'm just going to sleep on the ground at that point.
And it's getting cold, so it's not really a
maybe I could just get really high off the oxygen debt, and the rabbits would help me through some sort of Disney princess style nature assistance.
I mean, and if they don't, you might just hallucinate it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very whimsical.
Yeah, it could be like the one time I accidentally took opium and then I basically crawled on my hands and knees across a parking lot.
Yeah, it could be like that.
Yeah. Except it's in the middle of the night, so it's extra weird.
A little more likely to maybe get arrested or put somewhere you don't want to be.
I don't know. I'm white and it's Kirkland. They'd probably just come harass me about some shit. Yeah. I don't know. So another thing I was doing this week, though I would like to come back to musicals, honestly. Let's just we're an hour in, so let's take some of this good energy, shit in it, and then we'll get back to the good energy. I think it was last night officially Biden has won fully. Unless there is a actual physical coup, there's not really another option. The stuff has been called for final stuff in Michigan and stuff where they could potentially get the points on the other side, because apparently that's how this shit is going to work. And so Biden is the president-elect, and there's not really any other way about it now, which is useful because I spent a chunk of time studying Biden shit, because I keep up with Biden shit because I don't like Biden at all, and when I dislike something, I study it more, which is why I've studied so much religion stuff. And they have good art sometimes. So Biden's been making a lot of really shitty statements leading up to presidency, but also Biden has done a lot of shitty things in general. I guess the easiest place to start off is what are your thoughts on Biden, and sort of what are the good and bad things about Biden coming into being the president, and just him in general?
Okay, so him in general, like you, I am not a fan of Biden. He seems very policy wise, he seems very vacant. He seems very much like a vehicle for whatever is happening, that's kind of, I think, what establishment Democrats kind of wanted this time around. So that makes sense. But yeah, he seems very ideologically vacant. There's really not anything. He's well, the only thing I really know about him, because I haven't paid much attention to politics until the last 4 years.
Yeah.
The only thing I really know about him is the 94 crime bill. Yeah. I've seen his the speech, or one of the speeches that he gave for that, which is real nasty, real bad. We always talk about or some people have said, I mean, the bar for today for being PC or not racist is incredibly high, and we shouldn't judge past people.
Sure.
The past by today's bars. It just doesn't pass any bar. The things that he says are just racist. There's not two ways really about it. It's the same. It's the same exact things that Donald Trump is saying. It's just cleaned up, and it's about black people mostly. So,
and to be fair, the crime bill stuff, even as a very young kid watching fucking Power Rangers and shit, and getting a lot of media that was oh, it's evil that you have to get rid of. I also felt dropping the atomic bomb was wrong. I also felt like evil wasn't really a thing so much as like bad choices, just because that's sort of how I was taught. But also like I think growing up with a weird, strong inferiority complex in your younger years really trains you to like think that people are all just people in the end. Like once you come to terms with like not being so shitty to yourself and others, you get it. And I was coherent enough when the Super Predators stuff started up in like the mid 90s to where I at least understood that referring to certain people as super predators and for that to not just be a thing centered around like Bin Laden-esque like people, which already like I think a lot of people were in this boat, but you weren't allowed to say anything. When 9/11 happened, it was like, that's a huge tragedy. We can't make fun of this too much. But on the other hand, it was like, that's a huge tragedy, and we need to, like, one, keep going on with our lives, and two, like, just because terrorists dislike something we do doesn't mean we should do it harder. Like, that doesn't mean we should be worse people, which is exactly what we did. It means we should, like, we should probably actually course correct a little bit. And that's that train of thought through, like, my entire lifetime is exactly what I think Biden represents the antithesis of, is like he's been the entire time since like 30 years before I was born the thing that is pushing for us to get worse. And I didn't really get that Biden was a figure worth caring about until Obama had him as vice president. And I don't think I had like a lot of people who do work in the government, like you kind of just get it glossed over unless they do something where everybody's like, oh, that guy's really important. But like right now we have a bunch of people who we don't really know the names of for the most part, introducing and pushing through bills that are incredibly impactful, but we're not going to know about it until they either cause something really good or really bad to happen. And the fact that we've now got like 8 bills that Biden has been like the main push for that are all really bad, that should say something about like what he actually represents. And the way that he came onto the scene, like I thought he had a career that was like pretty well stated because he's so fucking old. And when you see somebody who's, you know, not been that notable until like the last like decade or so, be as old as he is, you kind of assume like, well, he's probably been around since like my parents were kids because he's older than my parents by a fair amount. And then like he didn't really have anything going on until he was pushing for getting rid of busing. And like that being his big first push into politics, being against anti-segregation measures and having it be because of like strength of the family politics is like the worst place to start. So like just right off the bat, he made his name by pushing for continued racism, but in the way that isn't going to get you called as big a racist. But like that's even what Kamala Harris, his VP, criticized him for during the election stuff. And moving on from that, he did the crime bill stuff, but he also was very vocal during the 90s, I guess. And like looking back on a lot of that stuff has been something. Let me jump into some actual quotes. All right, so does this have a date? 2002. So, you know, a while ago, but not that long ago. This is the quote from, so this is from BuzzFeed reporting. So this was when he was still senator in Delaware, which also Delaware is problematic. Also, some of his friends he made in Delaware is problematic, but I'll mention that in a minute. So he was writing about his solution for rising crime, which also, so this is in 2002, and crime wasn't on the rise. Like that, that just wasn't happening. And his response was, we can fight terror and fight violent crime at the same time, but we need to keep focused on what works, he argued. And what works in the fight against crime? It's simple. More police on the streets. I fought to help local law enforcement make our streets safer throughout my 30-year career in public service. He continued, put a cop on 3 of 4 corners, and guess where the crime's going to be committed? On the 4th corner, where the cop isn't. More cops means less crime.
That's the dumbest line I've ever heard.
Yeah, so his response to how do we fix crime, which also bad reporting, trying to figure out like why we need to fix crime in 2002 when we were the biggest criminals going after people for no goddamn reason in the Middle East. Trying to fix crime in the US at a time when we were probably more united than we'd ever been, even if it was for a bad reason, kind of pisses me off because that's like opportunistic and just sort of like, how could we be bigger racists right now? Yeah. And then let's see, in oh, I wish I were more organized and had time to write these down by hand, but I did not. Okay, so yeah, this is in 2016. So a series of well-publicized deaths of people of color at the hands of white cops had shifted the conversation on crime, and that's when the Black Lives Matter like really became a thing. And he was being like grilled more about like Hillary Clinton's tough on crime stuff that she had been kind of like pushing for her whole career. And his response was that we are safer and more secure today than we have been in decades, thanks to your hard work and dedication, which was his response to being like progressively asked more questions about police brutality because he's friends with a lot of police lobbyists as well, which is cool. And being questioned about police brutality didn't get any good answers from him, but it did get a lot of like positive messages from him out to like police and stuff like that. And there's a lot of other quotes from this general like police centric stuff, but it all basically breaks down to him and the police being like all or nothing, like essentially ride or die Biden and police, which is not who you want for the president right now. And the only other person in the Democratic running who is that hardcore into the police is Kamala Harris. And that seems pretty terrible just in general. Also, he's made a lot of comments about how recently, so his a lot of people have been talking about how Biden's positions have been changing, and I realize this is moving a little slowly. I'll pick it up a little, but this is maybe the thing that is the hardest to talk around because people always refute it immediately. Biden has been painted as like a practically a communist by the Republicans, which is he's a Republican. Like that's like Warren, he is a Republican who is now a Democrat in essence. He didn't switch parties the same way, but at least I don't believe he was ever on a Republican ticket. But he is exactly the same kind of like, if we were in the 90s right now, he would have been the Republican they used to try and run against Clinton. He just wasn't that far into his political career yet. And he started off with like pushing for more police as something that we needed to do in the 90s with his like police bill. And even before that, that got him into the position to be writing a policing bill. And his talking points now, being faced with modern police defunding, his police solution is still, we need more police.
Yeah.
And the only change I think he's made is that more good cops could be a positive spin on having some bad ones. I don't think he's used the term that would actually make it sound like any police are bad. He's just used terminology to make it sound like more cops would make it more secure. Because that's obviously from his 3 street corners talking point. That is his belief, is that the more cops, the better, period.
Yeah, that's mostly what he's advocated for, is more cops and more like training, like racial sensitivity training, which has been shown not to make any difference. And most of the time he leads all of that before by prefacing with violence is never the answer. Stop, don't protest, essentially.
Yep.
So
yeah, he's very anti-protest.
Yep.
He thinks that protests are riots. Every time there's been a protest where anybody's been a shithead on either side, he has commented on it being, we shouldn't have riots, though, which is, I will stand by it. Cars on fire is the most effective way of getting policies changed, period. I have not seen a single argument that has been effective in the way that some cars on fire has been effective. And that's why I'm so pro burning police cars, because they're police cars. They're public property. Unlike personal vehicles, people will get upset about that, but police cars actually cost a city money, and you could just not replace them. Like, there's an answer for how to do nothing and be fine. But make sure the cops are preferably not in the car when you throw a bunch of shit on it and light it on fire. But if they are in the car, maybe they should get out of it. That's my suggestion. I don't think any cops listen to this podcast or ever will, so that's fine. Hey, there we go. It looks like his campaign website was saying that he wants to put 50,000 more cops on the street and add 1,000 more FBI agents. So
yeah, sick.
There's a
more vans.
A nice starting point for all of that. Yeah, what we really need is more fucking federal intervention in our cities to stop all these violences against properties.
Yeah, we just need some more kidnappings.
So along the lines of police training, I'll take a quick detour. This is you can actually find this from Washington Post, but also The Guardian and a lot of websites, actually. I think New York Times did a piece. They're all from like start of this month or like around like election time. And so I think this is the Guardian piece because it has the most direct quotes. So did you hear about the Kentucky police stuff?
Mm-mm.
So their training material, this is also funny. A lawyer ended up getting access to some of the police training material that they'd been using. And this is discontinued training material, but I'll get back to that in a minute. This discontinued training material was then a high school student reported on it. So they like went through this training manual and did like a high school paper piece on it. And then that ended up getting it enough attention to go into actual news, which, if you think about it, that's kind of perfect for the way the world is working right now.
Yeah.
News doesn't really give a shit. Like, larger media news doesn't want to talk about anything that is going to, like, potentially put pressure on them or their security or any of that, unless we make enough noise for it to be like, well, we got to talk about it because we are the news. So, like, clearly it's not the greatest if it got reported on in a high school and then turned into news after that. The first meow sounded like somebody saying hi in a high-pitched voice.
Really?
Yeah.
He's scratching the door, so I gotta go let him out real quick.
You do that. I'm gonna eat one of these octopi.
Okay. All right, we hear you. I hear you.
These are too big.
Ready? Yeah, I know. Get out. Go.
That sweater is going to be covered in cat hair.
Continue. No.
Ah.
Oh no. I have shed a lot of wreath or tinsel, whatever this is called.
That's not surprising.
Okay.
Right. Make sure the cat doesn't eat too much of it.
Oh, I'll try. He did a really big puke earlier today, so I'm gotta be really careful with it.
Why? Any idea?
I think it's just old cat things. I don't know what he did, but it was clear from like the placement of things. I didn't hear it because I was blow drying my hair, but it was clear from like the crime scene that he had just eaten, because I had just fed him and we feed him wet food. He had just eaten the entirety of it, and usually he kind of like licks at it and will come back and eat it for a while. He ate the whole thing and then turned around and puked it all up like immediately. It was graphic. It was too much.
It sounds wet and gross.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My cat very rarely vomited growing up, but I did have I had a Nintendo Power that was a collector's edition. It's not really. It's just if you had a subscription, you got like this silver plate covered one with like Mega Man on it. In hindsight, pretty stupid, but I got it and I put it on the floor to read later, and my cat came up and just vomited just on it and nothing else. So a scathing indictment on video game culture from my cat.
Yeah. My cat has almost started a fire one time with his vomit. In high school, I had my laptop on the ground, or I was like on the ground, and then I left, and the cord was still on the ground, and he puked on the cord somehow, and it like burnt.
Oh.
It was really disgusting, and I feel it could have been much worse, but I walked into my bedroom and there was just like singed puke and cord, and it was like
I don't like that. That's not pleasant at all to picture.
Wasn't good.
You know what else isn't pleasant to picture? This training slideshow that the police in Kentucky used that they reported on.
Yeah.
So, instructional slideshow decorated with a bald eagle and American flag advises officers to, quote, meet violence with greater violence, and includes the line "Uber Alice," a phrase from a Nazi-associated verse of the German national anthem, juxtaposed against a background of American troops in Iwo Jima during World War II. Anti-Defamation League said that it is entirely inexcusable for words of Hitler to be used in training Kentucky State Police. It also had, apparently it was also up front stating that police need to be ruthless warriors who fight to the death. Okay, so the genocidal Fuhrer is quoted more than any other figure in the presentation on 3 separate slides. The very first essential, so in quotes, the very first essential for success is a perpetually constant and regular employment of violence, which is, I think, from Mein Kampf. And then a quote attributed to Robert E. Lee, meanwhile, touts the importance of truth and manliness in a slide titled The Thin Gray Line, which is a reference to during the American Civil War, Confederate soldiers who betrayed the Union wore gray uniforms. So it's not just quoting Hitler a lot, it's actually also pushing Confederate, like, heroism.
Yeah.
Let's see, there's a few more quotes, but I guess we don't need to read a miniature version of fucking Mein Kampf. So this was discontinued, but it was discontinued in 2013, and it was used by some people up through 2015 at least. So that's cool. That's just a lot of advice from Hitler and Robert E. Lee in Kentucky for the police as a sanctioned police training. So
you would think that these materials that they use to train would be a lot more like public domain, something that we should all know and have access to.
You would think police training wouldn't require a lawyer to get it from a court.
Right.
And considering they're public employees, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And it really seems an awful lot like when there's not accountability from people being able to see that, you get shit like this and the fucking Killology program from that piece of shit. But
the guy who started his whole thing off stolen valor, that's who you want to listen to for your kill instructions for police.
Or marriage advice. He has a lot of.
Oh, right. I forgot about that. Which, at the rate that police beat their wives, that's cool. I'm sure his advice is pretty good.
It's just one page.
Yeah. Beat wife in big text. It's just that and then a picture of Sean Connery under it.
Oh, God.
It's not always the right answer, but sometimes they get out of line.
Yep, this is the darkest timeline.
Anyway, so all of that was going on while Biden was arguing that the correct answer is to add many more police. Yeah. Also, I think it's worth noting that the whole idea of defunding the police is to defund police from, like, outside your community so that you can have police from inside your community of whatever your community requires. They're literally fighting against the idea of being policed by your peers because they want to keep people who are their peers in your neighborhood. There's no defensible position for that. Like, you can't just say, it's cool, all of our Seattle cops drive in from Snohomish because it's much more racist there, and that's how we like it. Like, that's not useful. If we're going to have representation in Seattle, for example, they should be from our communities. It's not like people don't want to be security. People can do that job in every, like, neighborhood.
And even if you're not, even without the argument of
even if you're
communities, no.
What kind of police are we talking about?
I was gonna say, even if you're not using the argument of communities should be policed from by people from within the community. If you take one look at any police budget, it's just fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like, they shouldn't have tanks. I feel like that's just something everyone should generally be able to agree on, that they don't need tanks.
I've said it once and I'll say it again. Bayonets are not things the police need.
Yeah, I don't see how that comes up in your everyday whatever, and it shouldn't ever. They don't need tanks. They don't need like weird sonic scary devices to like hurt people's brains. It shouldn't be that way. And I don't know. I've heard people argue about this, saying that like, oh, they need to keep up with the technology on the street. Like, no.
Fuck off. The cops are the technology on the street.
I
don't know why people think that's gonna change if they don't have tanks.
Yeah, it's the same kind of fucked mentality of like the Second Amendment. I need to be able to protect myself against the tyrannical government. Well, it's here, and it's got like way more shit than you'll ever have. So
also,
what's the point?
All the people who yell about guns in that way are on the side of the tyrannical government. So who gives a shit?
Yeah,
they're still gonna get oppressed with the rest of us too. Like, it's the dumbest thing. Being a member of the citizenry and saying, well, but they're gonna kill black people, right? I'm into it. Like, that's not being smart. That's being a complete piece of shit.
Right, that's getting used.
Yeah, and if you want the example of what reaching across the aisle is, it's Joe Biden also agreeing that we just shouldn't give rights to black people to not be dead. Like, that's insane that he is sticking to his guns that hard, except with the rest of my Biden garbage, it's not insane, because that's exactly how he treats everything. So, did you have any other police comments before I go into a slightly divergent Biden topic?
Oh, I wanted to just do a quick shout out of fuck you to all the people who are like who have supported Kyle Rittenhouse and sent him money that the dude is, I don't remember what the bail was, or it was a lot. $2 million. Yeah. Raised in, I don't know, not that long. He spent almost no time in jail.
It was like contributed by like a bunch of right-wing companies, basically.
Yeah.
You know, the will of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people, especially like on Twitter, comparing Kyle Rittenhouse's story to, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but the kid who was a kid, maybe like 18 years old or something, got a black guy got arrested for maybe stealing a backpack or something. Like, he was allegedly stole a backpack, was thrown into Rikers Island and just held there, and I don't think they ever got to his trial, and he ended up committing suicide there. So, because they couldn't afford the bail, obviously.
Right.
And
I've seen that comparison, and the refuting that I've seen is both crazy and also a lot of it is like, well, but his bail was cheaper. Like, fuck you.
Great.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome. So, yeah, anyway, the people like that, the Kyle Rittenhouses, are, I'm pretty sure, the future of the Republican Party.
Absolutely.
And so,
the Kyle Rittenhouses, the fucking dipshit kids who were quote unquote standing up to the indigenous people.
The Catholic kid who won his lawsuit against whatever the fucking is rich beyond his wildest dreams now. Yeah.
That is what the Republican Party is becoming. which is a shame because the Democratic Party to counter should be becoming progressive, but instead it's the Republican Party. So, like, honestly, our only true option is to make a third party at this point because we don't have representation for the left anywhere. Like,
right.
The weird, like, every person who is currently prominent in the Democratic, like, system or the Democrats system, the right wing always refers to as like, oh, they're the communist joker. Like, it's every time. And it's never true, but also it's getting more and more laughably untrue the further we get.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need is a real communist joker to be like the argument point. Like,
yeah,
it can't just be two sets of people almost all the way to the right. Especially in terms of world politics, we're like way to the right.
right.
Like people look at Brexit and think about like, well, what's all this nationalism over there? It must be just like here. Except their right wing got their like universal healthcare fucked up, but they had it until like last year. And our healthcare has never been good, but it's getting worse. And like, we're way more right wing than Britain. We just like to look at their like weird haired, like chubby asshole leaders and talk about like, well, I mean, that's clearly worse than ours, but it's not. We have like the worst leaders this side of like weird, like theocratic dictators. We're like one step behind them, and we have been since before Clinton. We just don't like to admit it. Like the weird bullshit with Clinton being like, well, he's into fast food and he plays the saxophone. Like that kind of weird shit.
Yeah.
Like that was to cover up all the like gnarly shit they were doing when it came to like police and when it came to like everything except education for like mostly young white people, but way more insurance based. Like they were setting up like a corporatocracy even more than the people before them. And like, as much as it sucks, we're probably like, we were born in the second half of the timeline of people like doing that with our government, like solely. Like, that's why things like the civil rights movement had to happen in the fucking like 60s, is because we had already been trying to get that shit for a long time before that. So like, we're not in a spot where things are like new. People keep acting like there's some hiccups, but people who think that there's hiccups are also ignoring all of the shit that's totally fucked up. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. Anyway, so insurance. This is why I said I'd get back to Delaware. Delaware is sort of notorious for being. Yeah.
I feel like we could use some Christmas cheer.
That's right. Let's get some Kali Mocho up in here.
Me. When I crack open this not so cold one.
Yeah. You can have a lukewarm coconut one once in a while. I think that's what Charlie was. Anyway, that's a joke for no one. So the biggest thing that Delaware is sort of known for in the political spectrum is being a haven for insurance and being a haven for like essentially corporations to be able to control like where people's money go, and for the people who represent Delaware, like Biden, they are essentially just getting elected into a position where they can be pliable for those groups. I honestly don't know why it's like that. I think there is more like researched and like long-term study that people can look into. But that is very much what Delaware is known for, is being that kind of place. And in the way that like California is where they'll do a lot of like progressive-ish things, but then they'll also take away protections for people working for gig economies. I'm sure Delaware has nice pastries, but they also have terrible insurance policies, and it's used as sort of a place, as my understanding is, to test out what works so that they can bring it to the larger government and see if that's like a solution for things. Much in the same way that some other places like Portland more than the rest of Oregon, but Oregon in that sense has been a place where you can test out, like, can we get away with like getting rid of like sentencing for drugs? Can we get away with like these things that Canada did like a million fucking years ago? Yeah, probably, but we're the only place that'll actually get that elected into a position. So like being from Delaware is already kind of like touchy for Biden. And everything he's done has been supporting insurance and police groups and essentially what you could call like white identity politics is like Biden's thing. It's not just super predators and police and things like that. It's also this insurance shit. And like his healthcare has not changed. His healthcare is still the idea of widening the amount of insurance available to people with lower incomes sounds like, to idiots, a good idea. Also not idiots, also people who think of like insurance as like, well, so that means I could get this procedure done and live. The money's not that important, which is kind of what insurance for medicine is playing off of. Like, yeah, you need it to live. So are you going to get dialysis and pay money for the rest of your life? Or are you going to not and have your life just stop anyway? Like, it's not a hard decision, but that's what they're taking advantage of with our insurance. Like, that is the only reason insurance exists, is to make money off the process of extending your life past the illnesses that are honestly mostly caused by the industries in this country not giving a shit about us. Looking through air quality and stuff like that, which was a weird sidetrack for my week, mostly because in the annals of ADD roommate, or ADHD roommate, sorry, there is a real push towards oftentimes having things that are inconvenient or things that are sort of like not comfortable being forgotten about. Sort of, it's not by design, it's by like, if it's unpleasant, the idea of it goes away faster because you're not going to hold on to that unless it's incredibly unpleasant. And so things like air quality, which affect me a lot, don't affect him as much, partially because he's getting treatment for allergies that is literally the same kind of shit that is in the air right now. So like, it feels fine because he's been getting these treatments to like lessen his effect from it as it is. But for me, I can't sleep if it's like getting into even the moderate range. Like once it gets like, I can deal with the AQI in the 40s, but once it's up past 50, it's like, I'm going to have a bad night, and it's only going to snowball and get worse after that. So like, I just keep the house closed up. But when you have somebody working on a computer in the house all day, keeping the house closed up isn't comfortable. So the first thing your mind does, if it's like, you know, having to try harder to make everything work properly in terms of like work and all that, is just say like, well, who cares? I'll open the window, basically. And I have woken up out of a sound sleep from a window in another closed room that was open long enough for the air quality to go under my door. And like, it sucks because I don't like putting like extra pressure on other people either. So it's a bit of that feeling. But the thing that I kind of found while looking through AQI, besides the fact that, you know, a lot of the the post 2016 rollbacks and stuff from Trump, which if you go into civilrights.org/Trump rollbacks, that is the official like government source. It has a president appointed like staff and everything. They go over all the like the civil rights rollbacks, and a bunch of them are environmental, and a bunch of them are fucked up. And that is the stuff that's been happening in conjunction with things like Amazon that are making the air quality worse and worse. And it's why Seattle is declining so heavily, so fast, is because of that shit. But all right, where was air quality? Air quality is not good. Anyway, so the point when it comes to medicine is that the air quality dropping and the air quality dropping in other places isn't being connected with like illness and stuff the way that insurance companies, if they did anything, would be required to look into more, which they're absolutely looking into. They're not going to ever have that be a thing.
That would never be a support that they would provide.
No, absolutely not. Areas that have AQI that stays in like the moderate range or above has like a fucking 10% increase in cancer. Like just straight up. Like the rates of cancer once you hit 70 blast through the roof with places like that, which is like, you just ignore it. If you're insurance, you don't give a shit. You'll take people's money if they're rich enough when they get to 70 and they have cancer. But like, you're not going to help people. Like, you're not there to help people. You're there to get their money. And just to touch on it again, because I have before, I think, but hearing from people who work in medicine in larger like hospitals and stuff, insurance is why your medicine doesn't work as well in terms of like, what do I need? How do I inform of that? And how do I get it? Because doctors, by law, based on the insurance, it's based on law, but it is like because of the hospital. The hospital's working with insurance is requiring doctors, if they want to be like working properly and everything, they have to only communicate certain information to certain people. And there are different people designated with jobs. Like, for example, when you go to the billing area, they don't just talk to your doctor, like even a dentist. Dentists often have slightly different setups where like you go to a family dentist, you'll get what you need. You'll go to the person who works the front desk and they will put everything together and give you bills and you know, they're your communication. With hospitals, the main way that it works is very separated, and it's separated so it can go through insurance. And insurance, because it's so powerful in this country, gets to dictate what everything actually means and costs before it gets to billing. So your billing is based off of only specific things. Those specific things have to be from the doctor or whatever like position of medicine you're getting it from in the hospital. So it's essentially like people keep talking about like privatization of stuff being the answer, which just puts things like insurance in the forefront. But like what we would actually want is individual service, where you're getting a standard medical treatment for whatever it is you need. And then that individual cost is passed to their billing at most. Like that is an actual way to get medicine. And ideally, the government would be helping with that to keep people alive, because morally, we're all subject to the way the government works, especially when our votes mean so little. So, like, they have a responsibility to look after our health, and they don't even want to do that. So instead, we're getting stuck with this weird-ass insurance thing. That is what Joe Biden is all about, is more of that. But for an example, if you say, I'll use me as an example. So during a year when I made under 20,000 for my total gross income, I was still on the hook for every cent of my medicine. I also was on the hook for monthly payments, not super big, but still monthly payments to student loan debts that I've had since I've been in college and will have till I die, especially given what I'll talk about with student loan debt stuff. But so insurance is supposed to be there to protect people who have low income, supposedly. And then rich people can just use their money and get whatever service they need. That's apparently what it is. You would think that rich people wouldn't care about how insurance is handled because they don't really have to worry about it. But since insurance is required for so much, they also get woven into that system. They just have the freedom to do whatever the fuck they want.
Right.
So the big thing with adding more insurance. So say instead of me having a cap like I did for getting cheap, like assistance, cheap meaning I don't have to pay a bunch of extra money and I just have to pay the original amount. Getting assistance that is time limited but makes it so I don't have to pay a bunch more means that I get to spread out payments for like 2.5 years, but I have a cap on the amount of money I can use that way of $2,500. If you were to space out that amount and offer people, let's say, $4,000, because we live in a capitalist society, which I feel like as soon as you say capitalist in a negative way, people tune out, but it's important.
Yeah.
What you're doing is not allowing for more service to the people who have the need for that insurance. What you're doing is making a statement that the procedures costing through the insurance can cost that much more. You aren't in a buyer's market, which is what medicine will always be in this kind of system. You are going to be, or I guess a seller's market. I don't know. I don't care. Bear market, bull market, who gives a shit? Anyway, so in that kind of system, when you give a higher floor to a low income amount of money, all you're saying is, well, now you can charge me for 3.5 years and we're going to make everything more expensive because we got to pay our costs. That's just inflation. Essentially, what Biden is offering is something that does nothing in essence. Like if you need a medication, that medication is like on a strict like zero increase kind of thing, like it's absolutely life-saving. Maybe that insurance goes a little further. Maybe it's a couple extra months. But that really doesn't do anything for people's like finances in this country. That just says we're going to be really nice and make it so that if you have a hiccup in your like work until you die life, you're not going to die from your illness right away because you'll have this extra cushion of some invisible money that we're going to charge you for later. So yeah, that's not universal health care, and he's not socialist or communist for doing that, which is the claim. Also, and this is a nitpick because I can't believe it's in Washington State, except I totally can. There is a group called, what is it called? Students for Life that has been putting up a bunch of ads about how actually universal healthcare is bad. It's called like universal healthcare is actually bad or whatever. And it's students that are through the University of Washington, which is really disappointing. And it's a group called Students for Life, but it's actually a right-wing group that has very, very light ties to some students in the UW, so they can use that kind of branding. And it's Students for Life because it's an anti-abortion lobby. So that was fun to find out about that. So universal healthcare also big threat to having abortion rights move more and more towards no abortions because pro-life people see funding people's medicine as the state funding murder because they're disingenuous fucks. So that's fun. I'm glad that women's health gets to just be thrown in the garbage can because it would be too socialist not to throw it in the garbage can. Like, I remember before Trump, the conversation was like, should workplaces offer free, like, tampons and things like that to people who need them the same way they offer men, like, free necessities for, like, their boners? And the answer was mostly, oh, it's a tough one. And then Trump gets in office and it's like, maybe we should just kill women. Like, the conversation shifted real fast. Anyway, that's the basics for medicine. They are essentially making it so things can be more expensive, and that's about it. So that's fun. The third major pillar that I want to touch on fairly briefly, well, pro-fracking. Let's just get that out of the way too.
Yeah.
Fracking is bad. The fact that Kamala Harris and Biden are like, but fracking's fine. That's the pussiest garbage ever. Like, you can't even stand up for, like, maybe we shouldn't, like, completely destroy groundwater and, like, condemn parts of our country prior to even needing space for, like, all the various refugees from the climate shit we're going to have to deal with. Like, I guess the plan is we just build a wall around the whole country and arm it, because otherwise all of that shit's gonna fuck us real hard. Yeah. It already is. Like, that's basically like the Flint, Michigan problem of, like, yeah, you fuck up groundwater. It turns out your officials and stuff can just kind of, like, wave it away, even if you die drinking your own water, because that's not important, especially if you're not white. Anyway, so fracking is bad. We don't have to spend much time on that. That is a pro position from Biden as well.
Yep.
One that I really got pissed off about this week, though, is his student loan counter argument. So did you hear anything about this?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so
I can guess. I have a guess as to what.
What is your guess? I kind of want to know how close it is. I'm even surprised with it.
I have no idea what he's proposed policy-wise, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say some of the reasoning is going to be, we can't make it too good for the people who come after us, because we've already, there's already too many people who are in the shit because of this. So we can't fix it for the future people.
That may as well be the argument. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard, like, that exact kind of argument, but it's definitely close enough. So
we had it bad, so you must also have it bad argument.
Honestly, that's the only way that I could see this coming out as, like, a thing that people could see as reasonable. I'll say this, more than the police even, this has the most boomer energy of any fucking shit I've heard from him. So this started off, loans were a nebulous point with him. Like, he really hadn't said much about it. In both Biden and Warren's presidential campaign websites, they noted about similar stuff of, like, loan forgiveness is something we're looking at, and it could be as much as, and it was almost always like a super low amount of, like, you'll get a rebate. And that's sort of what I expected, was, like, worst case scenario, they won't do anything, but likely what they'll do is they'll offer kind of, I think Obama did this, because I was looking at, like, getting a rebate kind of thing when Obama was in office, and it turned out you had to be in a finishing portion of college, like, one of the years he offered it, and I had, like, left college like a year before, and the offer for me was like, fuck you. And that was, like, somewhere in his, like, second term or so. Like, it was late in Obama's presidency that this stuff came up, and it was just like, this is a thing that they mentioned, but, like, it literally looked like 20 people got it. Like, it was nothing. And it wasn't to pay for school. It was to, like, forgive some debt, which is a nice way of saying, go fuck yourself. This is a news story, not a policy.
Yeah.
So Biden and Warren kind of, like, you know, doing that stuff. Not nearly as, like, complete as Sanders' stuff, but that's not surprising. It was certainly better than Buttigieg's terrible garbage of what his student loan thing was, we will offer cheaper college at state colleges for poors, but only poors, and rich people have to pay full price because fuck them, which is an interesting way to present it, except it needs to be for everybody. Like, I don't think that people with more money should get shafted just because like a policy isn't made for them originally. But also that guarantees it's not going to happen because rich people have all the power. So as soon as you say like, hey, this is something for poor people, they're going to go, no, it isn't, because that's what rich people do. So, and also, if you want to learn more about what rich people do, this includes you. You should listen to Behind the Bastards Elite Panic episode. It came out like last week, I think. They recorded it leading up to the election, and it just released like a few days ago. And it is one of the most like revealing looks into why things go the way they go. And it sort of, more than anything, illustrates that what we need to do is stop listening to rich people. Like, all of the people from like when we were kids that were like, we need to like do a lot of campaign finance reform and stop letting like these lobbying places give money to anybody, all that kind of shit. They're right. Like, that is true. That shit is actually the bad guy in all this. And a lot of it is based on the fact that all of those places are power with money that only rich people have. And rich people have very different priorities, not because I dislike rich people, but because biologically, once you have a certain comfort and once you have a certain like attachment to things, you don't respond the same way. And one of the things that they did a study with like 500 or so people of like different wages and things like that. The 100% like, this is a thing, and it is not the only study. There's been a bunch of them, and they go over that shit in that podcast. The only way to get decision making in like questionnaires and talks with people who are more financially like accelerated and more financially comfortable is to give them an extended amount of time and a requirement to try and visualize themselves as poor people. That's the only way for them to do like more compassionate things in most cases. So even just the idea that people who are financially well off are actually good people doesn't matter. It's not that they're good or bad people. It's that they literally don't have the same fears and concerns that people without money do, so they're not going to think about it. Like, it's one of those things where when I hear people talk about evil protesters and stuff, now I have even more context for like, nobody's evil. You just have completely lost that part of your own like thought process of like, well, what would I do if my job was the difference between me living in a car and me living in a home? I don't have to think about that. But maybe if I picture it heavily and focus on like what that life would be, I can kind of make decisions. People don't do that in their daily life. Like, that's not that. And honestly, it puts more context to why artists and stuff are often so like lefty and weird, is because your whole job is to put yourself in that position, to put yourself in every position you can. Like, it makes a lot of sense why the arts, just all of them in general, kind of lean left. And rich artists who make it, like your Picassos and shit like that, turn into weird fucks because they lose that, and then their art kind of fucks off, and then they just turn into monsters. So it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, Behind the Bastards Elite Panic episode, you should listen to that, everybody. It is. I'll probably actually just link that. I have a couple things I'll probably have to link under the post for this episode, because I'm sick of people calling me an asshole for being pro people. Anyway, so the big thing with student debt was earlier in the month, what's her name? Warren and AOC and somebody else. I think maybe Chuck Schumer had mentioned something about student loans. So between the pretty widespread of Warren, Schumer, and AOC talking about that stuff and asking for like answers towards it, Biden made comments on like sort of his version of what he would like to see potentially. And it came down to people having three versions of what he might like based on three different times that he talked about it. The first one was essentially like no forgiveness, but like we'll look into programs, which is what every president does. I think that was an older one, like post being the presidential nominee, like past primaries, but not yet into the actual election. So like, who gives a shit?
Mm-hmm.
One of them was his election stance, which was like forgive like $10,000 and stop there, which is asinine. $10,000 is $4,000 less than a semester of school for me, and I went to a small school. Most people are not going to be affected by that at all, and the argument that he and his supporters apparently gave for that is that $10,000 can be a down payment on a house, which is nothing. Like, okay, so I don't have to pay as much money as quickly to my student loans because I will not pay for it, guaranteed. But you're saying that I should still not have that money to eat with and then end up in a house. Like, that's nothing.
A $10,000 forgiveness on student debt automatically equates to I have $10,000 to invest in a home.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's not like, well, now I can pay for like fixing my teeth. It's like, oh, now I have a house, that's where the big boomer energy started on this.
That's so incredibly boomer.
Yeah.
Oh God.
The last version is where it are two versions of what he was going to do as like an estimation really converge, and he reaches both ultimate boomer and ultimate asshole status. And that is, well, actually, like being asked, like, I think AOC's version of it was like, we need to forgive student debt, like straight up, which, yes, absolutely. Like, we've done that shit in the past, and it has always been like a giant boost to the economy. It's always been a giant boost to like suicide rates not going up and all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
So his counter suggestion was, all right, $10,000 a year for up to 5 years, but that's if you do community service for all of those years. So the suggestion is, so you get another job and you only get $10,000 a year, but you don't actually get that money. And that's where my mandatory labor intro came in. What he is suggesting is that if you do volunteer work for a year, you can get a rebate off of your college for $10,000 per year.
I feel like this has a name.
Does it?
There's a name for that.
I don't know if there's a name for that. Anyway, so it's one of the most insulting versions of that I can think of.
Yeah.
Because, like, along with that, so first off, so $50,000 maximum means people who do vocations that actually cost a lot of money to get through, or people who do it later in life and maybe do it slower, any of that kind of shit, who cares? Like, yes, it will save you some money, but much like the $10,000 setup, that money isn't going to you. You are not making that money. Money that could exist is not money that does exist. So right away, fuck off with that. Also, like, the only people at that point, because at the $10,000 thing, you could say, like, well, like, that's pretty stupid. That's not going to help anybody that much. But you could see a benefit of, like, well, if you're coming into something where, like, you have a job and you could get a better position in that job if you take $10,000 worth of community college classes, if you pick up these extra bits of school after school, you could potentially, my stepmom was in this position, not too much money, you could get yourself into a master's and start making more money that could help you. What they're suggesting in that $10,000 total allotment is potentially useful in very specific cases for few people, but some. And it could raise some people from a status of not having gone to college to a status of getting some free courses so that they could technically move into something they want to do. I get that. I would count that under job training, not under student debt, though.
Right.
So that's interesting, but that's not useful. This version is insulting because it's now, if you do community service, which that could just be a job. Like, I know where community service comes from, and it's supposed to be the government. Like, community service is sort of the replacement for the fact that you don't give a shit about any of us, and you don't actually want to pay us for doing work to improve the country. So you'd rather we did it. And then it's also adding to that we're doing another job. Right now, most people do multiple jobs. I believe we're both in that. So
yeah,
that's also garbage. So add a third or fourth or fifth job, you millennial assholes, and maybe we'll think about giving you a term-ish off, maybe. I want to see the process they would want for proving that, or for doing any of that shit that isn't just you being in like weird educational probation also. Like, I don't know. That it's I could just see the dystopic future of people like, well, all of these student labor people trying to get an education have been firefighters for 20 years, and now they're not even allowing them to be actual firefighters. We should do something about that. Like, there's so many like real world issues that you could tie in with this that are just like, that's garbage. It's worse than most versions of this. And also, if you get a $10,000 rebate, this is a real pleasant way to act like you're doing everyone a favor and just kind of slide in maybe $5,000 to $15,000 worth of debt for you to pay off because you get that free thing. It's very like BOGO of him to like give us this like option of like, yeah. Oh, well, I noticed you didn't want to buy fucking Mario for $60, but what if it was $45? Do you want to give us that money still instead of none?
Yeah, I also really enjoyed the maybe it's just me who reads it this way, but I feel like the language of community service is usually held in like a more disciplinary sort of context. So I love the idea of like, you done fucked up, now go do your indentured servitude and you'll never see a cent of it.
Oh, you thought you could go to college? You should have been successful.
Yeah, I guess if you were a good person, you would have more money.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much sums up what I was willing to look into on Biden for like specifics this week. My initial idea was to look through all the cabinet people that he was talking about, but that became too shitty too fast. So yes, I did not have time to do that shit. Yeah.
We've had plenty of time, and I'm sure there's plenty of shit to talk about there. But I think it would almost be worth it to make this maybe not a weekly, but at least a bi-weekly thing, because that is actually one of my, and I think a lot of people's biggest problem with Biden is that he will put on the guise of normalcy and make it seem like things are fine. And for most white people, things will be fine. So I think it's important that we do, I don't know, even if it's a short 5-minute update of the shit that they're doing now, Yeah.
Now you listen, Jack. I'm not letting any coloreds into the white schools around Boston, Buster Brown.
We can we can call it our malarkey minute segment.
God damn it. Has he called anybody a chicken head yet? I feel like that's the direction we're headed with Biden.
No, you know what? I am really upset that mainstream media like refuses to actually seriously cover the crazy shit that he said at town halls, like challenging people to challenging people to like push-up competitions. Why was one of the debates just not a push-up competition? You would have had all of the money in the world. Everyone would have tuned in to see that.
Okay, bucko, we're both going to give blowjobs to the insurance companies, and you see who does it better.
Oh, God, he's had so many good ones. Like, what is a horse-faced pony soldier? Someone explain this to me.
I don't know. It's one of those, like, weird pseudo-Southernisms that's, like, I bet that has, like, some sort of weird, like, native slaughter behind it.
It feels racist.
There's nothing good about that.
There's something about it that's like, I don't know what it is, but I think that's racist.
It is, it's fitting that everything he says is the audio equivalent of him smelling a young girl's hair from the back.
Yeah. Oh, yep. Yeah, so...
Yeah.
I think a malarkey minute segment or something of the type would be a good thing, just to remind people what we're working with here.
I would love to show them what I'm working with. Let me write down that action, because that's a good idea. I don't know how to spell malarkey because I'm not 70, but I'll put it in here.
I know how to spell malarkey because I have half of my family is from Kansas, so.
I'm sorry.
Me too.
Just make sure you don't look into their police training slideshows. I think he'll be all right. Yeah.
I couldn't get it turned on in time. I couldn't find the switch.
You gotta get that up there into the screen.
Hey!
Yeah. Now that's some malarkey I can believe in.
Happy, happy joy. 'Tis the season for performative. Woo!
What's a Christmas song? That's a birthday song.
It's Hallelujah, a Christmas song.
That's good enough.
Why don't I know what that is?
That was Jingle Bells. Poorly.
Oh, okay.
When I was trying to think of a Christmas song, I kept thinking of 2 Chainz's birthday song, and that's not a fucking Christmas song. Like it should be.
That would be an all-right national anthem. That's the future liberals want.
All I want for my non-denominational holiday is a big booty hoe. I'm into that. All right. So I did watch another movie, and it was... I can't suggest it, but I can tell you that it is relatively, like, perfect for the Lifetime movie shit.
Okay.
And this movie is called Christmas Inheritance. It is your most waspy Christmas movie you could get.
It sounds so tough. Does it start with someone dying?
No.
With an old relative dying?
Weirdly, it doesn't. It starts with a businessman deciding that his heiress daughter needs to learn to be more country before she gets to inherit the company. The company is a Christmas gift company because fuck you. That's why. That's not a company. So I guess it's like a Harry and David style thing, maybe. They literally never show anything about it. The thing that stood out the most to me is the evil current boyfriend was a black guy, and the bonus guy, like the let's go get him boyfriend, he was like sort of a troubling country asshole. Like his
good.
Nice. He's the definition of shitty white knight, in which he's like helpful, but it's because he's from the country that he's helpful, and not because he's not like incredibly like toxic and horrible, which he maintains through the whole thing. Like at the end, it's basically a like, oh, I was sad when you left for a few hours, but now I get my sex prize. So the movie starts off with this character whose name I don't care about. The main character, of course. It's probably Karen. I don't know. And her boyfriend, let's say James, because he kind of reminds me of a non-white version of James from Twilight.
Okay.
Which is not an endorsement. But he has a similar face in a weird way. That kind of like, I'm very boring, but also an asshole face. And so it's smooth. I'll give him that. Great job. So he is introduced as like a somewhat like disassociated boyfriend, and she starts the movie off by going to a giant, super rich New York fundraiser for a ghost, for her dad's company, which again does Christmas gifts. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. And she comes in doing a cartwheel, and everybody's like, "She's here!" And then some dude at the party's like, I'll donate a bunch of money if you cartwheel over that table. And then she does that and knocks over a tree. And she's like, oh no. And then that becomes a scandal, I guess. Who cares? And the dad's like, well, I was going to leave you the company this year and retire, but now I'm not so sure. And then his, I think, good friend that they call Uncle something, still lives in the small town where they started the company, and he's like, well, I have a special thing for you to prove that you're an adult, which is already, once you learn what it is, it's like, this is stupid. But he gives her a letter, and he's like, you have to hand deliver this letter and get his letter or something like that in the small town and bring it back.
That's what adults do. Hand deliver letters.
Adults take letters to your dad's friend and then bring the letter back. So, and then the big surprise is, but you only have $100 to stay in like the hotel down there. And the hotel, you'll get a free room, but you only have $100. Also, he gives her $100 bill, but she's only supposedly going to be there over a single night, which is already like $100. Are you kidding me? That's plenty of money to get fucking food and shit.
Yeah.
How much money did we have when we went to the fucking ranch wedding per person? We probably spent like $15 or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it's stupid. The other big surprise is he gives her a ticket to go down there and back, or
so
to
the
go
travel's
down there.
Paid for.
The travel's also paid for, but the travel's on a Greyhound, which is
horror.
No. So I was immediately offended by this movie because I took a fuck ton of Greyhounds, and I don't see that as a weird way to travel. That's just a cheaper way than the train, which is a cheaper alternative to the plane. So like,
yeah,
already go fuck yourself movie. So she goes there, and then she's at the bus station, which I think they just used an airport exterior now that I'm thinking about it, which is kind of funny.
That makes sense.
and one of her 3 luggages rolls into the street because a guy's like just looking at his like pumpkin latte as he walks by and accidentally like knocks into her or something. Maybe he has like a tree he's hauling, and her one suitcase with like clothing in it rolls into the street because she has like a bunch of clothing with her or something. I don't know. Stupid. It's a poorly written movie. A taxi hits it, and the guy gets out of the taxi, and spoilers, it's the love interest. And he's like, "Why are you putting your luggage in the street?" And then it turns out he's like the only taxi in town, and he takes her to the place that she's going to, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I work here also because I'm helping out with what's his name."
Ugh.
And so he's also checking her in. It's already like the most forced storyline. I mean, it's called Christmas Inheritance. Of course it is. And it turns out that the guy she's there to meet went on a fishing trip, and he'll be back later. And I think it's like December 23rd or something like that. Like it's like the 22nd or 23rd. It's not quite Christmas, but it's almost Christmas. And that's like the secret plot is that actually the dad was testing her to see if she would stay until Christmas, which is a stupid test. And other spoilers, because it doesn't matter when you watch this movie. The guy who she's supposed to meet up with plays Santa Claus at the Christmas thing. So the dad and he have already talked. They already have the whole plan. If she stays until Christmas and gives up on going to like a party, then she gets the company, which is like no stakes. And also his whole thing is like, well, I mean, the real test, because the dad's just there on Christmas, he like shows up out of the blue, and he's like, the real test was with these people. And it's this room full of like random fucking people from the town that she's in. And it's a fair amount of people too. She clearly has not interacted with most of them. And it is the most like stupid, like nothing movie when it comes to that stuff. But it does have Andie MacDowell in it, which is really weird. She plays like the guy's mom. And the most interesting thing about this movie is this guy's horrible mental state, the like love interest. So when she first goes with him on like the first night she's there to get food, they go to like a diner, and I forget, there's some amount of duress. I don't remember why. They like got off on a bad foot. Who cares? The diner is run by his mom, and his mom used to date her dad when they were younger, but also, and her mom is dead, but her mom's been dead. That's not even like a plot point. But also, part of her going there was she has to keep her like identity a secret from everybody. So it's like this extra layer of like, well, nobody can know you're rich though, because you're the party heiress. So you have to pretend to be a poor. It's a very Tyra Banks kind of thing. And so she's there in her poor person fat suit, and she's talking to his mom, and that's a Tyra Banks joke. Don't worry about it. And he's there, like he's kind of interacting, and you find out that he had like I think somebody he was going to marry who like dumped him right before the wedding, maybe. But it was like, I think it's supposed to be years ago. Like it's like a thing that's been the case for like a long time. And that's apparently, I don't think this is another movie I watched, but it could have been. I've watched a lot of trash lately. Apparently that's why he works so many jobs, is because it keeps him busy and he doesn't have to think about it, which is crazy in the concept of it being years ago. Yeah. And he lives in a small town, which is like, that's not how small towns work. If somebody leaves you in a small town, you have a pretty working knowledge of the people around you. And he's like a normal looking, if completely destroyed human. So like, I wouldn't fuck him, but I get like what they're trying to illustrate is just stupid. So I think it's Holy Night comes on, the jukebox, and he starts yelling and starts beating up the jukebox. And it's because that's what was playing when she left him. It's like psychotic. And that's a ongoing kind of thing where he's like violently upset about this other person, and this whole movie takes place in like less than a week. So he goes from like,
oh no,
I'll kill you when a song plays to like, yeah, we should be together forever at the end of this. It's like
therapy necessary.
no, therapy is for people who aren't getting laid, apparently.
Uh-huh.
And he's also a total chud. Like, it looks like they hired him only because his face is like manly enough in shape to work, but like it's that like sort of non-believable, you could be an underwear model but like not an interesting one kind of person.
Okay.
Which is usually where the Lifetime style movies land, I feel like. Unless you're Kevin, and then, you know, you got a rockin' bot. So this is a Kevin podcast now.
Yes.
More about that next week. Anyway, that's all that's in this that's interesting, except that when the dad shows up, he clearly is going to get back together with his old girlfriend, who is this guy's mom. And this guy's definitely going to marry the main character. So it's another one of those, like, mom and dad with...
Why?
Mom and dad. Like, I hate it.
Every movie like this try and create the most incestuous scenario possible.
You know what would really be great, lover, is if your son and my daughter were fucking. That's not gross. Then we could just hang signs on both our doorknobs at the same time.
I don't like it.
I don't like it at all.
I don't like it at all.
Anyway, so watch Christmas Inheritance if you don't value your time. I watched it, but it was like I was having insomnia, and I thought maybe it would help me get to sleep, and it kind of did. So, you know, congratulations to that, I guess.
That's pretty good. All right, okay. I'll put it on my list as a go asleep to this kind of movie.
I would add Shrek the musical to that list too.
I did go to sleep to Shrek the musical, which is why I had to watch it in 2 parts.
I could go to sleep to that in like 15 minutes, and I should probably give it a shot next time, because that thing was boring as hell. I think we kind of skipped the part where also it's 2 hours and it should have been 25 minutes. That's probably the biggest thing with Shrek the musical. On that note, though, Elf Pets, Shrek the musical, same frequency of music. Elf Pets is like maybe 2 minutes at a time without music, and I hated it for that. Like, if you're gonna be that hard a musical, you have to be good, and neither of those things are good.
Yeah, there were too many songs. Yeah. Too many songs. There was one song from Shrek that I think is like one of the good ones that people like. And I think it's the one where they're like, I've got you beat, like I've got more childhood trauma than you. That one. I think that's supposed to be one of the ones that people like. Oh no! It's real bad. I need to pay more attention to where this button is so I can activate it more comedically. It's really bad. Like,
yeah, you need more control over your skirt environment.
The Switch is so small. I have to like really look for it. But yeah, 2 thumbs down on that. Also, I think we already said it earlier. The Farquaad Daddy Issues song, that can go away. That whole plot can go away.
Yes. Daddy Issues might be the only thing that makes that like a Christmas movie, though.
I mean, the only thing that would make it better is if there was, really high stakes of like inheriting a large plot of land or a Christmas gift company. that
Yeah.
would increase the
High
stakes.
stakes.
Mm-hmm.
God, that reminds me. Did we talk about a maid for Christmas? We had to have, right? Or
I
a
think
nanny. A
along.
nanny for Christmas.
Oh yeah, we talked about that
Yeah,
one.
it sucks.
Yeah,
Speaking of
I
that kind of thing, that fucking sucks.
I watched Holiday the other day.
That's not a terrible movie.
I actually enjoyed
Yeah.
Holiday. I enjoyed it. It for one reason being that that actress, I know her name is Emily. I can't remember her last name.
That actress is good. Like
She's
she
it's
pulls it
Emma something, I
she
think.
pulls it through really well, and that actor was good enough. He was not as boring as a lot of those movies have.
Yeah, when he first like in his first couple of scenes, I was like, oh
Yeah.
no, it's getting really bad. But it got better as time went on. But I think her name's Emma Roberts. She I've mostly only seen her in like American Horror Story type stuff, so it was
Yeah.
pretty nice to see her in something like nice.
She
And
she does what I think most comedy actresses and actors should do horror first, because I think that is really good for like timing and stuff. The
yeah,
the it's just a personal thing, but especially for like American style comedy and British style comedy, but like they go a little bit like wackier most of the time. I
hmm
think American style comedy of having reactions and tone of voice be like a big part of your joke, having something where you've had to act as like the straight man already to something that is wild that's happening seems like it's really good for people. Like there's a comedy that has pre crazy surgeries, Famke Janssen. It has Raymond of Everybody Loves Raymond fame. It has like
hmm
Owen Wilson, I think. It has like one of the Wilsons. It
hmm
has like a ton of weird people in it, and it's about like a family at their grandpa's funeral. Not like they go to their grandma's house and just are there until they go to the funeral at the end. And it's legitimately one of the funnier like comedies of the last like while. Um, Granted, I think it came out in like 2011 or something. Like it's older, but it's actually really good, and like everybody in it at that point had been doing some like weird ass shit up until then. And because it was like a weird melodrama comedy, it worked great. Same with like American Gothic. That movie works really well, and it has like I think it's like one of the guys from like criminal victims unit or some shit, and then
hmm.
what's her name from Thor, the friend. Um,
Uh, is that Natalie Portman?
no, the friend of Natalie Portman.
Oh, the friend. Oh, I don't know that.
She's also famous, but
She's
Kat
not Natalie Portman.
Kat Dennings. Uh,
Okay.
and that movie is we rewatched that a few weeks ago with some of my friends, and that is it's been a while since I've seen it, and I remember really liking it, but it is literally a horror comedy that's like horror scenes that could be in something like an Exorcist style thing, but played off as comedy, and
Hmm.
like it's never slapstick really. And I just think that kind of comedy works really well because you can poke fun at that stuff really effectively, and everybody
Oh,
gets to
sounds
have
good.
like gallows humor, which I think is probably one of my preferred humors anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that does set them up to understand the timing of stuff better. And she did a really good job in Holiday. It was like a pretty good amount of dumb,
Yeah.
but also funny. So
I liked what's her name in it. They have like a weird reference to American Gods, which she's also in. Chenoweth.
oh, I haven't seen that, but I did like her.
So
She was
there's
good.
one of the scenes in Holiday is a Easter party where she's there with a Jesus, and that's literally like straight a scene from the American Gods series on Showtime.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, she did really good. I liked I liked all of the characters too.
Yeah.
I didn't think there was anyone that I was like, that person is really annoying.
I even like that they had one of the stereotypical happy relationship that gets like a wrench thrown in by like somebody cheated at some point. And I even thought they did that well of like the sort of subservient one of the two was like, really? And then in like a scene later, they're like, whatever. Like it's very like, funny. It's very real. And I thought that they did a good job of playing off the like, this is how people actually deal with things and making it funny.
Yeah, I really liked the that couple. The mom is like kind of she likes to party and she wants to go out and she's always going out by herself because her husband is like helicopter parenting the children.
Yeah.
And she ends up accidentally giving Emma Roberts a bunch of laxatives at a Halloween party.
Uh-huh.
I'm a big fan of like shitting your pants humor in a movie. I think that was pretty good. I didn't expect that.
It was the shitting your pants and the injury in that movie. I didn't expect either of them, and they both actually worked really well.
Yeah. I really liked the fireworks, that whole scene with all the guys. That was pretty funny. And I liked the weirdly her brother York and his girlfriend / fiance.
Oh yeah.
And their like newly engaged thing where she's kind of realizing, oh, he knows almost nothing about me.
Yeah.
And then she gets really high, and is like, I don't feel anything.
Yeah.
I really liked her character too. Yeah, that's a good movie. I would recommend that to anybody. I also just watched Mr. Right. Have you seen that?
I don't know.
It's with Anna Kendrick, our girl Anna Kendrick from Twilight and other things, but mostly Twilight.
Mostly Twilight.
Mostly Twilight. And I don't know who the main guy is. He's he's very like unremarkable looking.
Let me look it up. Because if I did watch this, it was very definitely I watched this during like a late night in like 2015 or something.
That's probably about when I would clock it as being released. Yeah, it was released in 2015.
Yeah. Let me. I've seen too many shitty movies, and I'm kind of sad about it. But I also I love life. Oh no, I did watch this actually. I watched this like this year.
I really liked this movie.
Yeah, I did too.
I thought it was good.
It's Sam Rockwell.
Okay, yeah. I don't know anything else that he's in. I probably before, but
if you want to have a fun time, you should watch David Bowie's son movie Moon. That is one of the best, worst, like actually fun, like dystopia movies. Yeah, it's definitely watch Moon. But yeah, Mr. Right was actually really good. I enjoyed it.
I really like. I've realized I have this. I think the perfect movie formula for me is like some amount of ridiculous action drama, but combined with the weird love plot that like doesn't really make sense.
Honestly, that's what Twilight is, and I think that's why we like it.
Yeah,
because Twilight is an unintentionally hilarious one of these movies.
Yeah. I wish they would make more movies in that vein because like Mr. Right and Red, if you've seen that.
I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard that it's worth seeing.
You would like Red. It's very it's not as like quirky. Well, I don't know. It's very similar to Mr. Right actually.
Well, I think Red's actually based off a comic. I think I think that has existed for a bit. But yeah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So I watched Mr. Right after quarantine started.
Mm.
But I watched it at like 3 a.m. When I was still not, when work had to be like fully closed. It was one of those weird, like, it's 3 a.m. and I'm awake. I should watch a movie. And then I watched that, and it was like getting done, and it was like getting light out. And I was like, I actually really like that. I don't think it's because I was tired. Um,
I think that is about the same time frame I also watched it.
Nice. I remember really enjoying the bit of storyline that was the other, like, there are hitmen in this movie, and there's a hitman that is, like, paid to, like, counter hitman a hitman, and he ends up just kind of being, like, complicit and, like, fine with it. And I liked his character. I thought that was
like, I can't remember. It's the guy with the gummy bears is who you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Well, the guy who gets the gummy bears at the end, but is like very excited about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really liked that too. Anna Kendrick is really good in this movie, I feel like.
Yeah, because I thought she was pretty shitty in Twilight, and I thought she did pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. She plays like a weird girl character very well, but beyond that, I thought that like she does this like quirky thing, but in the moments where the guy like actually reveals himself to be a hitman, like when he actually kills someone in front of her, she reacts very convincingly to that and is like, okay, like, take me home, please, and I want this to be over. But yeah, I think that's like the Madison perfect Venn diagram of things that I enjoy.
Also, worth noting, it is very lightly supernatural in that movie.
Yeah, it is, because they discuss this like weird force thing, like that's why he's so good at dodging shit and shooting guns, is because he can like perceive where people are going to go, and she has it too. It's kind of like,
it's a very weird but like movie appropriate way to like move the plot forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked that a lot. It gave her something. Cause they kind of hinted at it before she even met him, because they would have her character do like little throwing things, and yeah, I thought that was really good. Very underrated. Maybe it's not underrated. Maybe I just am out of the loop.
I don't think anybody saw that movie, honestly.
I think
it is
everyone
underrated.
should see it, and Red too. I love Red. I've watched it so many times. It's like one of my favorite dumb movies.
I will look for Red, but yeah, I think our joint endorsement: watch Holiday and watch Mr. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Those are both worth it. And if you feel like going to sleep, watch Shrek the Musical and watch Christmas Inheritance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll see what category Princess Switch 2 goes into next week.
Oh, wow. I have no idea where that one's going to go.
And I think you'll be able to tell from my sign-off that my preferred Hudgens vehicle did not get a sequel yet. And the Jabbers needs to come back. The superior of the series.
Okay. All right. We'll see.
I mean, do you prefer Princess Switch over A Night Before Christmas? Remember the accents.
I prefer Night Before Christmas for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my preferred vehicle for a Hudgens as well.
Yeah.
And
the accents in the Princess Switch, it only intensifies in 2, and holy shit, is that I feel embarrassed for her the whole time. And I shouldn't, because it seems like she thinks she's really good at it, and I don't know how much of that is like just, I don't know. I have no idea. It is mysterious. She might love it, she might not. I guess that's a testament to her acting.
Maybe she's such a good actress that she's acting like she's confident in the thing, and that I don't know. It's really bad, and yeah, the secondhand embarrassment is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to watching the second installment of that.
Yeah. Yes.
And,
that's what I like to hear.
All right. Well, take those movie recommendations and be gone. Thoughts.
Also, shove it.